I didn't know what Parkinson's was. I was living my life as if, nothing was different. But when I was given the news, I thought, isn't this a disease for old people?
Yeah.
And of course, because I didn't know anything about it, the first thought was, am I dying?
Welcome back. You're watching The Dr. Nandi Show. And today I'm discussing a disease that's often difficult to diagnose, and that's Parkinson's. I'm sure just like me, you know someone, a friend, a family member who's been affected by this progressive disease and seen how life-changing it can be. I'm talking about Parkinson's because as a physician and advocate, I want to clear up misinformation and give valuable advice and inspiration to those who deal with this on a regular basis. Now, before we heard from Jimmy, a young man who was diagnosed in his 20s. You might have thought that Parkinson's is an older person's disease, but it can affect younger people too. Now, Jimmy tried to ignore his diagnosis, but when he fell down a flight of stairs with his 10-month-old son in his arms, he knew it was a wake-up call. And then Jimmy completely turned his life around. Here to share his incredible journey is Jimmy Choi. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, of course. And here's the thing I'll tell you. When you had that accident, when you dropped your son, was that the wake-up call for you?
It was. I think everybody has to have that rock bottom moment, and that was for me. I realized then that I was becoming a danger to my kids and a burden to my family instead of helping my wife raise our family.
And tell me so you went from having really no problems, you were successful and doing everything well, to then having this issue where you had to deal with this issue. Tell me how it changes your mindset.
It's like a big slap in the face. I didn't know what Parkinson's was. I was living my life as if, nothing was different. But when I was given the news, I thought, isn't this a disease for old people?
Yeah. And
of course, because I didn't know anything about it, the first thought was, am I dying? But then the next few things that the neurologists tell me is that, no, it's not a disease that will kill you. However, it is progressive, and there is no cure. And I think hearing those words, I think that's what stuck with me for the next 8 years. And I chose, unfortunately, to ignore my diagnosis from the beginning for the first 8 years.
So for those who are watching, Parkinson's can happen to people. It's very subtle because we know about the big symptoms for Parkinson's, but it can be very subtle. You went and got a lot of opinions, didn't you?
I did. So when my first neurologist told me that he believes that I have Parkinson's, I didn't want to believe him. So he said, that's perfectly normal. You should seek a second opinion. And this time it was a movement disorder specialist.
Oh.
Somebody that is a specialist.
Yeah, yeah.
And I walked into her office, and she took no more than 3 minutes to tell me I had it.
Wow.
Whereas
how about the general neurologist? They took a long time to tell you?
I would say there's 4 or 5 visits before they would even dare mention the word Parkinson's. But after the second opinion, and she was so sure, I didn't want to believe her, so I went and saw the third opinion.
And what did they say?
So it was also another movement disorder specialist, and this time he also confirmed the first 2 doctors' diagnosis and said, chances are it is Parkinson's.
And you thought it was just take a pill and you'll be fine, right?
Exactly. I didn't know, how to treat myself, and they said, well, you can take medicine, and it will help you with your symptoms. And I thought, am I able to live a normal life? And the answer was, yeah, you should be fine for 10 to 15 years. So I made it.
You're a young man, you're in your 20s, right?
I was 27 at the time. So I made it my life mission to do as much as I possibly can in the next 10 to 15 years professionally to make sure that my family is taken care of. But little did I know that a lot of things that I ended up doing added to stress. And stress is probably the worst thing that you can add to anybody with Parkinson's.
Yeah, and as a doctor who takes care of a lot of patients, every disease that I take care of, including people with Parkinson's, stress will make sure. But I have written down that you made a decision to do some things that will change your life, and you started to run some half marathons and marathons. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so after the fall with my son, I decided that I needed to do something. And I'm not smart enough to find a cure. So I signed up for clinical trials, whatever it is I can get my name in. And what I noticed is that all the clinical trials that I signed up for, there was a physical component to it, meaning a physical activity. And little that I know at the time is that physical activity is the only thing that's proven to slow progression for Parkinson's. I started I started walking actually, just once around the block.
Yeah.
But I noticed it made me feel better. So the walking became, once around the block became twice around the block, and then I started jogging, and then I started running. I came home and I told my wife one day, after reading about another runner with Parkinson's in Runner's World magazine, and I told her, I'm gonna run a 5K. And in training for that 5K, I realized that I've developed a runner's high.
No, awesome.
So it's really helping me with my on and off periods of my medicine, and it's really helping me manage the effectiveness of the medicine. So I just kept going. The 5K became a 10, 10 became a 15K, and then a half marathon.
And how many marathons have you run now?
So as of January this year, I completed number 15 marathons, and on the same weekend, I ran my 100th half marathon.
That's amazing. And we know we left that you've done so many of these half marathons and marathons, and then you got into the American Ninja Warrior. Tell me about that. Your daughter had something to do with that, didn't she?
She did. So she's been watching. She fell in love with the show ever since they went national. And every year she would bug me, Dad, you should try it. And I have excuses every year. No, Daddy has Parkinson's. Daddy doesn't have the upper body strength. Daddy doesn't have balance.
It's not easy to be an American
It's
Ninja.
not. It's not. And you know, the more I ran, the more fit I got.
Yeah.
She kept pressuring me. And then finally, last year, we saw another person with Parkinson's compete on American Ninja Warrior. And immediately, even before her segment ended, she turned to me and said, what's your excuse?
Yeah.
So I had no choice, but I told her, okay, I will submit an application and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Not expecting anything to come out of it, because I figured they've done the story, right?
Yeah, they already had someone with Parkinson's, right?
Exactly.
Why would they get you? Okay.
So I submitted, you know, I did the best I could in the physical aspects of the video that they wanted us to submit. And about 6 weeks before we were to compete, I got the call.
That's awesome.
And it was just a total surprise. And
Were you? Tell me what that felt like. I mean, and your daughter must have been ecstatic. Huh?
Oh, she was. So it was a surprise to her. And when I found out, we set her up. And I told her, hey, guess what? She goes, what? What's going on? And I told her, I'm going to be an American Ninja Warrior. And she just freaked out. Yeah, she flipped out. And it was, I mean, I wish I could, that moment is going to be ingrained in my mind for a very long time.
Yeah, and then those of us who are watching, you know, the thing is that we all have obstacles in our lives, right? And then look at this gentleman. I mean, he looks fantastic, and he's got a disease that can impede you. But what he did was, and this is so important, be your own health hero. You know, set your goals and take away your limitations. Looking back at it, how important? Of course, these are amazing things you did, but how important was the fitness in maintaining your disease and controlling it?
Well, you know, the fitness part is, I think, is very important, because it helps with how my medicine, how my body reacts to my medicine. I truly believe that it's really helped normalize the way that meds is delivered to my body, and it really helps me manage the ups and downs of medicine cycles. And then the other thing too is that one of the things that Parkinson's patients experience is dystonia,
right?
Which is essentially, you know, extreme cramps where you're locked in a position, or your extremities are twisted. But building strength, I build a lot of the counter muscles to be able to help myself, you know, ease out of that. Probably maybe a little bit better than others who aren't as fortunate, you know, with the strength. So definitely building strength has helped. Of course, balance comes
huge.
Yeah, the muscle memory.
And you said something really important, the runner's high. The mind is so important in controlling any disease, and this is no exception. You spent so much of your life, you know, I wouldn't say your life, but many years not telling your family about Parkinson's, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're such a big advocate for Parkinson's. First of all, why make that decision to tell folks, and why be an advocate for this disease?
I like to tell this story, and I mentioned for the first 8 years I completely ignored the disease. We tried to file it away. I took a pill and thought I was going to be fine. But as the disease progressed, as you know, I started walking with a cane. I gained a lot of weight. I was up to 240 pounds at one point. And so for the first 8 years, I did nothing but let myself deteriorate, let the disease take control. When I decided to run my first marathon, the only way in was a charity bid.
Right.
And you have to commit to raising money. So the only way to raise money, the first thing you do is go to your family and friends, right? So I had to open up so that it would help me do the fundraising. But what I realized really quickly is that in the month's time that I opened up and raised money, I raised more than $5,000 for Parkinson's research. My friends learned about my disease, and they've came flocking to support me.
Huge.
And I've helped inspire other people with the disease. So in that 1 month's time, I did more for myself and for the community than I did
in the last 8 years.
In the last 8 years.
And you're inspiring us today, and you're inspiring people in the world. If you had a message, because people are watching, and I'm sure they're watching and listening to every word, what message would you give folks with Parkinson's and also in general, people with other limitations? What would you tell them?
You know, it doesn't matter what you're faced with. I mean, everything is an obstacle. Everybody is faced with some type of adversity. The idea is never to give up.
Absolutely.
You want to go out and don't quit the things that you love doing. Just find a different way of doing it. Right. You know, and sometimes that first step is the hardest step.
Exactly.
But once you take that first step, the rest will come.
You're the man.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, absolutely. You know, here's the thing, and it's so important. What he said was, you know, you have obstacles. You can focus on the obstacles, but rather look at a solution. And Jimmy is a solutions person, and it's inspiring what he's done. You know, great to meet you and understand what you're doing. When we return, we'll meet a movement disorder specialist who'll share why Parkinson's can be hard to diagnose, as with Jimmy, and what other diseases and syndromes it could be. Coming right up. Please stay with us. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Partha Nandi, and if you enjoyed that video, you're going to love the next one. It's full of incredible information to help you start your health hero journey.